Get ready to reimagine the future of humanity and unlock your true potential. Welcome to Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours, hosted by Dr. David Gruder, an internationally renowned integrative psychologist, human potential expert, author, and social change catalyst, as he delves into the most urgent issues of our time. With the world facing unprecedented challenges and social and political divides growing deeper, it's time to take action. Each episode of this groundbreaking series will empower you with invaluable insights, strategies, and tools to heal these divisions and restore personal freedom and societal well-being. Whether you're a concerned citizen, a courageous leader, an influential figure, or an ambitious entrepreneur, Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours will guide you on a transformative journey. Discover your unique role in creating a brighter future for yourself and society at large. Dr. David Gruder will draw upon his extensive knowledge and experience to provide practical solutions for shaping the world we live in. With his passionate exploration of social change, he will help you navigate through the complexities of our time and inspire you to make a meaningful impact. So, prepare yourself for an eye-opening experience as we delve deep into the heart of the matter. Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours will challenge your perspectives, ignite your imagination, and equip you with the tools you need to reimagine and redefine the world around you. The time to transform our future is now. Join us on this incredible journey and enter a new era of possibility. For more information on Dr. David Gruder and the Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours, visit www.rhfy.ca. Welcome to Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours, where together, we create a brighter tomorrow. Now, here is the host of Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours, Dr. David Gruder.
Welcome back to the Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours show on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. I'm your host, Dr. David Gruder, the polymath of human potential, societal psychotherapist, and futurist, who equips leading-edge leaders, influencers, helping professionals, and you with impactful resilience that makes it possible for humanity's most spiritually elevated future to at last emerge. The title of this episode is Reimagining Work, Sharpening Your Purpose Lens for Next Level Success. The business world is changing fast, and this means most of us are overdue to overhaul our vision so it integrates our personal purpose, career trajectory, and workplace choice. In this episode, we'll delve into ways to uplevel your human skills as AI shapes your work roles and how organizations must be redesigned to shatter stagnation and support thrival. Open your doorway to next level success for yourself and your workplace. Forging genius in today's work chaos, you're about to meet Alyssa K. Borden, a global HR strategist and founder of SuccessBridge with an Executive MBA and an MS in negotiation and dispute resolution. She's a thought and market leader who reimagines talent strategies to elevate resilience amid today's ongoing disruptions to make the ideal workplaces of tomorrow a reality today by blending emerging technology, critical skill building, operational savvy, and financial fluency with strategic workforce expertise and customized talent frameworks. I know that's a mouthful, to boost clarity, speed, and confidence. After having held global leadership roles at respected companies such as Valmont Industries and Union Pacific Railroad, and currently Fontenelle Forest Board of Directors President-elect, Alyssa has the chops to help organizations and individuals build the resilience and growth required to successfully navigate complex business challenges and transformation initiatives. In addition to being a keynote speaker and coach, she provides fractional support to boost momentum when key projects stall. She and I are also fellow members of the C-Suite Network's Thought Council. Yay, Alyssa, welcome to Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours.
Hi, David. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've been looking forward to this.
Me too.
And, in this first segment, we'll look at symptoms people experience but might not recognize or clues about confusion about the future of work and the workplace. But first, Alyssa, how did you initially get interested in being an HR strategist who catalyzes next gen workplaces?
It came over time. I've always been interested in how systems work and those human components of it and the relationship orientation. So after working in HR for a long time, seeing behind the curtain with the C-suite and also hearing frontline worker challenges, I just found myself thinking, there has to be a better way. We know that there's a better way to overcome some of these challenges that we see repeating themselves in the workplace. And it really was a call to action to me to say, why not me? Why can't I go and help people build those skills, help organizations try something a little different so that we can get in the driver's seat and take ownership for making work what we want it to be?
Mm, beautiful. I love that. And I think one of the things that I'm learning about similarities between you and me is that we we see where the gaps are.
Yeah.
If we look around for solutions and we don't find them, and we're passionate about dealing with those gaps, we find a way to fill them ourselves. And so that's what you've been doing, and I'm delighted.
Yeah.
So in this first segment, as I mentioned, well, actually, what I'll say for our audience is that in this episode's next segment, we'll get into root causes of what we'll cover during this segment. But first, as I said, what big pain points are employees, managers, and executives aware of having that are connected with being confused about the future of work and the workplace?
Yeah, so you'll see it play out in different ways for different people. But a few examples that I've seen are, for instance, structures and policies that restrict people's movement or don't give them the space to experience the things that they want to. So, or are capable of doing. So, a great example would be oftentimes you have job profiles and career ladders that go from bottom to the top. And the way to rise is you must become a manager. Well, when we look at our highly technical people, and that's a growing segment of our workforce, they may really just want to be an expert and grow those technical skills. But because of the structures and processes in place in companies, they have to go become a manager of people. And they may or may not even get the training investment from their company to do that well. When in reality, their skill set and their interest and desire is simply to grow in this technical track. And so there's some arbitrary structures that people will see that will sometimes give them a hint that something isn't working. The other things that I see are, you'll see turnover engagement issues that are consistent and repeatable. So we do an engagement survey and the same things keep bubbling up to the top. I don't have the tools and resources to do my job, or I don't feel like I have internal promotion opportunities. That's another sign that we're in this cycle of non-productive work, and we're not really capitalizing on the human skills inherent in our workforce.
Mm, yes, very, very, very articulate and well said. And I agree with you that the traditional structures and policies do restrict people's movement and creativity. My dad, what you were talking about in terms of tech people who might just want to be experts rather than becoming people managers, that was my dad's situation. He was in a corporate setting during his lifetime that was very appreciative of the expertise he brought and his sweet spot, and they kept wanting to promote him beyond where his passions were, and he kept saying no. It was eventually he became the senior tax counsel for a Fortune 100 corporation, but they wanted him to move up into the C-suite, and he wanted no part of that or of managing or of executive roles. And I bring that up simply because I think that's not unusual.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. I'm seeing it a lot. As you know, succession plans are a big part of a business, making sure you have that pipeline and ready talent that can meet the needs of the organization in the future. And as we're seeing more and more of the baby boomer generation retire, you also have Gen Xers coming behind that who have said, I don't want to work until I'm 75 or 80. I want to retire at 55 and go do a gig job. And so even those people who may be in the C-suite now are going to potentially have a shorter tenure. But some of those folks coming behind have repeatedly said, well, I don't want to work that way. I don't want to grind myself to death, in the office every day. It's not worth it. And people are self-selecting out. And yeah, we are finding that a lot. And I'm seeing that now that millennials hold the majority of C-suite, VP, and above jobs, that group is also saying, but I don't want to do it the way you did it. And so I foresee a huge challenge for organizations who aren't able to change the way that they operate to inspire those people to stay and to want to grow into the C-suite as well.
Hmm. Yes, that's so right about Gen X having a different life path architecture than the boomers did, or that the greatest generation, the generation before mine, did. And it's really important. And then you also added something a little while ago that I wanted to underline as well, which had to do with the Peter principle, right? Where people are promoted to their highest level of incompetence. And when you have someone who's passionate about their technical expertise, and because of that, they get quote unquote rewarded by
Mhm.
being promoted into being a manager, they may not want that in the first place, but even worse than that, they're promoted without the skill set, without the capabilities and the capacities, and without the proper training, which basically sets them up to fail in something that they really didn't want to be doing in the first place.
I know. It's maddening when you watch it happening. I mean, and the same thing happens with your high performers. This isn't a secret. This is common sense. I think that we've all seen that you get rewarded with more and more and more. So your high performers are burning out. But in the meantime, there's this literal treasure trove of other employees in the organization who aren't being given challenging assignments, who aren't being challenged, who aren't being considered. And then the organization is trying to go externally to fill these roles and sometimes spending a year or more. I've seen some job openings go for an incredibly long time when in reality, time would be better spent. Money would be saved by simply investing in and capturing the human skills that you have inside your organization and not taking it for granted. It's really fascinating, and especially as technology comes into play. And this may be something that people are seeing too is organizations don't really know what AI will do. We don't really fully understand what that will look like, but we're investing a lot of these tools because of external market pressure, because of stakeholder pressure, or simply to try to stay competitive. But so we'll spend millions on these implementations, but almost nothing on that phase zero, that people side, and understanding how will people adopt and use these technologies, and then they
Hmm.
fail. It
Yes.
and it happens
Yes.
over and over, and the employees see it. They're like, "Oh gosh, here's another initiative, here's another tool." Even though in reality, if invested well and built well, it would solve a lot of their pain points at work. But they
Exactly.
lost credibility and
Well,
trust.
yes. And well, the rest of this episode dives into the root causes of what Alyssa and I were just discussing, and what to look for in a solution, and Alyssa's version of that solution. After a short break, my brilliant guest, next gen workplace thrival expert Alyssa K. Gordon, and uh, I'm sorry, not Gordon, Borden. My
That's all
goodness,
right.
Borden and I will explore less recognized reasons behind why the nature of work and workplace needs are changing in profound ways that are creating confusion in employees, work teams, managers, and executives. I'm Dr. David Gruder. This is the Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours show on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and we'll be back momentarily. Welcome back. Before the break, my guest, Alyssa K. Borden, told us about symptoms that people experience when they're unclear about the future of work and workplace dynamics. And in this segment, as you already know, we'll delve into under-recognized root causes of work and workplace confusion. So let's dip underneath the symptoms we were talking about. What are those most overlooked root causes?
So often I think some of the root causes are really that we're using outdated management practices and organizational structures because they're comfortable and easy and familiar. And they don't fit with the reality of the workplace or the workforce anymore.
Spot on. We're using outdated management practices and organizational structures that don't respond to the current climate. So that's one of the root causes.
Yeah, absolutely. The challenge is everything. History is a great informer, but it also, we can only use it to inform. It can't predict because the world is constantly changing. Just like as you drive toward the horizon, the landscape around you is always moving. You're moving toward this point always, but it never ends. And so when we think about the talent workplace, we now have an infusion of technology. We have kids who build relationships differently. We have an entire generation now who only knew having technology, and those of us in between who lived in both worlds of analog and digital. But we want to work differently, right? Our parents and the generations before us always wanted what was best for us. And because of that, we have gotten greater work flexibility in many cases. Many workers' benefits and rights have improved, but then others have been lost. And so if organizations can't be more flexible and kind of break some of those internal practices that aren't working, they'll no longer be able to attract and retain and develop the people that they need to be successful. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy when it comes down to it.
It's true. It's absolutely true. And this is this is important because a lot of people know that the combination of technology infusion and kids who build relationships differently, a lot of executives in business know that, but they don't know what to do about that.
Right.
And that confusion is an example of a need for an expertise that often isn't inside the organization, in contrast to what you were saying in the first segment about people in a business being an untapped treasure trove for all kinds of creativity and innovation and expertise. But this is one of those areas where very few organizations have that expertise inside of them.
Yes. And I think it's not that they can't have it, it's just that they haven't built the right cultures and norms around it. So that ability to get away from perfectionism and say, this process isn't working, or this goal that I had is reporting red, and here's why. Many organizations have kind of built this perfectionism up inside where we have to analyze. We have to get to a perfect answer. But we all know that the landscape is so dynamic that you can never actually get there. So you could spend 6 years, for example, researching and analyzing, building perfect roadmaps, but the roadmap will always change. And so until organizations can kind of let go and have more of that experimental mindset that's working so well in a lot of the tech firms that are being so successful now, that needs to transfer across industries so that that experimental mindset And that learning mindset can be pushed down to the teams, and they feel comfortable taking ownership and trying new things and really using those skills and talents that are being untapped right now.
Absolutely. So you just said another marvelous mouthful. I'm going to try to paraphrase for our audience so that this doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Of course, new norms are needed, and one of the things you were just talking about was perfectionism, and one of the forms of perfectionism is analysis paralysis.
Yes.
And I would suggest that another form that of a problem that's connected to perfectionism is what I call paradigm attachment disorder, where we've got this stuck mindset that prevents innovation from happening. And that, I think, in turn, is why, when you talk about the experimental mindset, why there's been a rise in recent decades in forward-looking companies about wanting to encourage what in some circles is called intrapreneurship, an entrepreneurial mindset inside of a non-entrepreneurial larger company. And of course, what has to go along with all of that is a learning mindset, as you said. Um, I I have another kind of connected question in terms of root causes, but before I get to that, was there something you wanted to add to my attempt to summarize what you were just saying?
Yeah, I have been recently leading a lot of workshops under the theme of job crafting, which is basically that idea of bringing that entrepreneurial mindset inside of corporate organizations. We glorify, that person in a hoodie who goes out and starts this billion-dollar business on their own, but the reality is that critical thinking, resilience, relationship orientation, creativity, social influence, all of those skills are the ones that are really going to differentiate humans inside of organizations. As technology starts to take away a lot of that kind of rote, boring, transactional work that we all hated to do anyway. So, yes, I've been having really exciting discussions with people on job crafting. And what has been fascinating to me is how many people just haven't felt like they've had that opportunity. And it's all about tiny, low risk moves. Even inside an organization that's very controlling, people have a lot more ability to test and try that entrepreneurial mindset than they think.
Yeah, yeah. Well said, and that's a great kind of sneak preview for what we'll go into in more detail in the next segment about solutions, where job crafting is part of what to look for in a solution. So let's let's double back to that. I
Yeah.
think another root cause that I want to make sure that we touch on in this segment, at least briefly, is the way that the HR department really got hijacked, because the original version of HR was supposed to be nurturing and developing people. And over time, what was thrown on the shoulders of HR was becoming the compliance police. And wouldn't you say that that kind of incompatibility of those dual roles is also a root cause of why we have this kind of confusion today in the workplace?
Yes, I would agree. As an HR professional and someone who's been trying to elevate the seat of HR for a long time, um, those compliance pieces get in the way because they create this narrative in managers' minds that this is what HR is for. And we're here to check boxes and, put on fun events for the party people and the compliance police. That's not what HR is. I mean, most companies, one of their largest line items is people cost, between salary, benefits, and all of the like. So, but yet HR isn't included as a key business partner, right? It's just assumed that managers across these other specialties are going to understand and know how to workforce plan, how to develop, how to upskill. And in many cases, great people do know that in isolation, but they're not doing it on a holistic strategic level. And that's where, HR's responsibility to speak in terms of the business, not just in terms of, hey, we're here to have fun and develop. Here's what it means in terms of return on investment when we do these things. Here's how we save money. Here's how the company grows and becomes more productive because we invested in these things. So that's the challenge for HR, to demand that seat at the table and represent it well in terms of business outcomes, so that we can change that mindset inside companies on how we're
Mhm.
looked at.
Yes. So right. The HR does need to become more business savvy so they can demand a seat at the table. And of course, as you know, a lot of HR professionals in their training are trained in HR. They're not trained in business savvy, right?
Yes.
And that's uh, I think very, very important. And it also ties in with something that I wish we had more time to talk about in this segment, or at least in this episode in general, which has to do with this kind of two fundamentally incompatible hats in HR. And archetypally, those are a role conflict between the steward archetype and the lover archetype. And I've got to say briefly what I mean by that. The steward archetype in business is the compliance police, in the sense the steward is responsible for stability, predictability, organization, and standards in an organization. And all of those things are really, really important, but they shouldn't be occupied by people who are responsible for holding the lover archetype in an organization. And the lover archetype in businesses is all about developing people, developing people's capacities, developing high level, productive, enjoyable collaboration and productivity and things along those lines. You can't it's not possible for an executive to wear both the lover archetype hat and the steward archetype hat in a single role. It just can't be done.
Like, that is really insightful to think about, because it does feel like, when you're in those high level HR business partner roles, you're having to wear so many hats. You're stretched so thin. Your opportunity to be really good at any of those things is a trade-off, and you're just constantly juggling, and that diminishes your capacity to really have a big impact at your company.
Yeah, I went into some detail about that in one of my books, the Nimble Company, about the archetypal configurations in executive teams and what's missing. So after another short break, we're going to get to the heart of the matter, which is what to look for in a solution that can resolve the root causes of work and workplace confusion. And as I mentioned, you have already, Alyssa, given us a sneak preview of part of what we'll delve into in the next segment. And so, with that, I'm Dr. David Gruder. This is the Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours show on the X Zone Broadcast Network, and we will continue momentarily. And we're back. Before the break, my guest, who is a real thought leader in the future of HR, Alyssa K. Borden, and I delved into less recognized but vitally important root causes of work and workplace confusion. And as I mentioned in this segment, we'll discuss ingredients to look for when you want to be prepared to thrive in next gen work and next gen workplaces, as not only as personnel, but as a manager, as an executive, etc. So, Alyssa, what ingredients should employees, work teams, managers, and executives look for when they want to thrive at the forefront of the profound changes in the nature of work and the workplace that are rapidly emerging?
For me, one of the things that gets in the way and is a thing to look for is decision rights. Do people feel like they have the opportunity to make decisions in their role? roles. So oftentimes there are lines of bureaucracy. So the more that managers can give back to their employees and entrust them to make decisions, the faster you can get to different outcomes and experimentation. And that kind of ties into another thing to look for, or to start to build, is that flexible experimentation mindset. Being able and willing to take small changes and have fun with it, right? Don't get caught in the perfection. Just test and try in real time all the time, and then collaborate and communicate across silos. Those are huge opportunities as organizations grow through M&A, and we're having a lot of that right now in this phase of business, at least in the US, that I've seen. And so more and more silos going up means you have less information exchange, more duplication of efforts, and more walls. So the more people can communicate out, the more they'll be able to start making headway and finding out that, improving out that the old ways weren't working. But they've got solutions in their back pocket that they can test and try without it being a huge lift.
Mm-hmm. This also deserves to be unpacked. So let me attempt to do that. First of all, you talked about three things: decision rights, flexible experimentation mindsets, and cross-silo communication and synergy. So with the decision rights, it's about the fact that entrusting people to make decisions in their scope of responsibility gets to better outcomes faster. And so the question there becomes, what needs to be done in order for people to be trustable with those decisions? And that's part of what to look for in a solution to this, is expertise like yours that helps people develop trustworthiness in that sense, and helps managers and executives let go of the micromanaging. The flexible experimentation mindset, that whole notion of having fun testing and trying small changes and doing that all the time, that's kind of the entrepreneurial mindset, the innovation and creativity process. And the cross silo communication and synergy, because you've got these silos, you have not only duplication of effort, but you have untapped creativity, where some creative things are being done in one silo that could be adapted in another silo, but the other silo doesn't even hear about those things, let alone know how to implement those kinds of changes. So those are huge, and I thought they were worth underlining: decision rights, flexible experimentation mindset, and cross-silo communication and synergy. What else should people be looking for in a solution to these issues?
I'm a big believer in the fact that we need to look internally within ourselves, and that needs to go all the way up to the top. So the more we can ask, is this an ego-driven decision? Am I not giving this person responsibility, or am I not even spending time with this person to understand their interests, their needs, their capabilities? Is that because I'm making assumptions, or is it because I'm afraid to let go of something? So the more that leaders can take a step back from the day to day, and I get that's really hard. We're talking about people with an incredible amount of responsibility for their employees, their communities that they serve in their businesses. However, when you get to those leadership levels, that's the job, that thinking big picture, taking a step back and really understand what are the drivers and things going on that are getting in the way. And then not making assumptions, involving people along the way, I think is a critical component. And what you'll find is the ideas were already out there. The solutions were already out there. While you were trying to forge it alone in your head, it could have been distributed out had you only communicated. So I think we all need to take a pause and be comfortable at having difficult conversations, or what we may define as difficult, but challenging conversations in order to get there.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I love how you've worded the specifics, or at least some of the specifics of the old saw about work on your business, not in your business.
Yes.
And this is part of the looking within ourselves as leaders, uh, making it part of our job description to take a step back from the day to day, to think big picture and understand the drivers, and to take time to involve people along the way, because solutions we don't need to come up with that we would love are already out there if we just have those kinds of quote unquote challenging conversations. And of course, what you're pointing out between the lines is that a lot of leaders have never been trained in how to have those conversations in good ways. So they either avoid having them, or they come in like bulls in a china shop, and with good intentions, oftentimes they end up doing damage unintentionally. So this is massive. And of course, you're also mentioning ego-driven decisions. One of my sound bites is leaders lead at the level of their self-development limitations despite their highest intentions. And so this is another part of what to look for in a solution, is expertise that helps executives be effective at looking within themselves and effective at having those challenging conversations.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of humility to do that. But in reality, you hired good people for a reason, right? You have this team full of people for a reason. And so why wouldn't you use it? It's just, getting caught up, I think, in the pressures and the speed. We're taking too long contemplating when we could be trying and trusting and getting things done. I would be curious from your perspective, some of those psychological components, Dr. David, how does that happen in leadership where we perpetuate these things that we know don't work, and we didn't want to perpetuate from maybe the leaders that we learned from, but it still keeps playing out generation after generation within these workplaces, much to the detriment of the organization overall.
Yeah. Wow. We could devote an entire episode to you and me
Just to
discussing
that.
that. I'll try to offer a soundbite response for now. A lot of people who get into leadership roles are unaware that part of their motivation to do that is they're trying to redeem themselves. That deep inside themselves, they think that something is that they're not deserving of love or connection or validation, or even sometimes emotional safety. That they're trying to prove that they have validity, that they're worthwhile. And leaders who are leading from a need to prove their validity are leaders who end up making lots of decisions and doing lots of actions that undermine their higher intentions. So that's kind of a short answer. Those what I call those is an ego's redemption plan. You were talking about
Oh,
operating from ego earlier. The ego's redemption plan is not a spiritual redemption plan. It's a I have to prove myself. And leaders are, in my experience, almost never helped to uncover their ego's redemption plan, let alone get free from those. But when I've helped leaders accomplish that, they become capable of doing all of the things you were just describing are important for leaders to be able to do. So that's my
wow.
short response to your question.
It's fascinating. Yeah, we could probably talk for an entire episode about, and then, how that plays out, and the people that they're leading, and the people that they're training, and the norms and cultures that get built around it. It's workplaces are incredibly fascinating. And I think if you approach it with that mindset, whether as an employee or a leader, it just makes the opportunities start to come out and get through that stress and look at it as we've got a long list of opportunities here. How can we start to portion those out to others so that we get further together? And remembering that team aspect versus the I solo aspect.
Yes, for sure. So as we come to a close, toward a close to this segment, I want to double back just as a bookmark to remind our audience that another thing to look for in a solution that Alyssa touched on in the last segment had to do with job crafting, entrepreneurship, critical thinking, creativity, all of those kinds of things. And then what we didn't touch on in this segment as well is aligning personal purpose with our role's true value to the business, with the business's true value to those it serves in specific, and then to society in general. And that's another kind of alignment. I call it vertical integrity. That's really important to be looking for in a solution. And so after our upcoming break, we'll return for our episode's final segment, during which I'll be asking Alyssa to reveal how she helps personnel and companies step into their best possible future. You ready to do that in the next segment, Alyssa?
Yep.
Great. I can't wait to hear about that. I'm Dr. David Gruder. This is the Reimagining Humanity's Future in Yours show on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and we will return shortly. Well, before the break, next gen workplace thrival catalyst, Alyssa K. Borden. I just gave you a new title. Sorry.
All right. Sounds good.
And I discussed ingredients to look for when you want to thrive at the forefront of the profound and rapidly emerging changes in the nature of work and the workplace. As I already mentioned, during this final segment of this episode called Reimagining Work, Sharpening Your Purpose Lens for Next Level Success, Alyssa will tell us how she provides what we suggested in the last segment that you look for. I'll then let you all know the best way to access and discover Alyssa's marvelous resources and get in touch with her. And after that, we'll each share the big takeaways we hope you've gained from this episode, followed by my closing comments. So, Alyssa, how do you help businesses not only embrace the future of the workplace, but thrive in it?
I would say where I start is helping them get a realistic view of where they are. So often we're focused on these future ideas and getting all this input from a million different places, our cell phones, our emails, other consultants. The reality is taking a pause and really taking a catalog of where are we starting from? Not the values written on the wall, because sometimes those don't live out in exactly the way that we think.
Usually.
Pull in all the data, talk to the people, and just get real and transparent about the challenges and realities of where you are. I think that that is such a critical component. And getting out of the storytelling and the narrative that often happens in business and is important, right, to catalyze change, and just getting really honest about where we are. That for me is step number one.
It absolutely is step number one. There's no question about it. When I've been brought in to do organizational analyses in order to make recommendations for up-leveling, that's got to be the starting place. Yeah, for sure. So that's the first step. And that's the first step in what you provide. What do you do from there?
For me, and this is where it diverges depending on the organization. So usually that analysis will help us start to identify through workshops, through brainstorming, through even just gathering up the data that exists on where do we want to be and what is that gap. So assessing that gap between the real current state and where we want to be is really the next piece. And I work really closely with stakeholders to identify that work. And then my role is really to lean in on the people side. Yes, technology is important and I love technology, but I come in and say, what is the art of the possible when it comes to our people? What are some of those core foundational mindsets or practices that are lacking for whatever reason inside the organization that are causing that gap and could make us jump very quickly to some wins and some successes toward that bigger vision.
Mm-hmm. And so this is so important. I want to underline it as well. Of course, the second step depends on the organization, but like Stephen Covey talks about, begin with the end in mind. Well, that doesn't quite cut it for me, and I'm inferring from what you're saying, it doesn't quite cut it for you. Begin with the best possible end in mind. Where do you want to be, so that you can identify the gap between now and there, and then the other thing that you mentioned in this second step is about not just leaning into the tech side, but integrating, harmonizing the tech side with the art of the possible from the people side, so that the tech side and the people side aren't competing against each other or canceling each other out or having negative perspectives, but instead it's about harmonizing so that people can perform even more effectively and more enjoyably.
Absolutely. And technology will open the doors to that. I I've been working inside organizations for a long time and spent a lot of one-on-one time helping and coaching people, individuals. And there's always something. There are those tasks that you love to hate, right? They're there on your task every day and people complain about them. They show up in surveys. You're begging for extra resources to do them. But yet sometimes it feels good on a day when you're just not feeling 100% to just click through those easy things. And so what I'm really striving to do is help people develop a different mindset that they may not have experienced before, which is I have to be continually trying and changing and not looking at change as an event, right? But this ongoing state of being. And because the reality is that is not just workplaces, but our lives with technology. And we have to train that muscle because our natural instinct is to dig in. So a lot of my work is spent capturing internal stories and then helping to apply them to those possibilities for the future so that people can understand and see themselves in it, and then getting them some real tangible skill building. My goal is that I am not at an organization forever. I'm not one of those consultants who wants to embed myself for all time. I don't think that's healthy. My goal is I'm taking on tangible work, proving the art of the possible, but in the end, I'm leaving behind people who can carry that mission forward and scale it, because that is how true change happens. It's through individual networks of people and small exchanges and small little bits of empowerment that make these organizations much more quickly become a thing. It doesn't have to be a top down narrative pushed by HR. It needs to come from the people. And that's my goal and what I really do.
Yeah, it's innovation and productivity collaboration,
Yes. Yeah.
really. And so that third step is about developing an up-leveled mindset and skill set, so you can fill the gaps, so you can implement the art of the possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that my role is oftentimes um, to play that challenger mindset. I'm brought in for a reason, right? Something has stalled, or we've been working on this org change for years, or this technology isn't being adopted. These are painful things. Organizations have invested a lot, and they're looking for someone to challenge. Uh,
Yes.
and that's the role that I play within the constraints of the context of the organization. And there may be things that don't work for them that work for others. And my job is to have those challenging conversations and then explore what would actually work in this scenario in what order, knowing that the world will always be changing. There isn't
Right.
one right way for anyone. And that is one of my foundational beliefs that I want to ingrain in teams is there is no singular right way. We just need to go and try and trust our people and empower them with the right skills so that they can try. And it'll be amazing the progress that organizations will make when they do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay. I want to move into our final
Okay.
part of this segment, but I can't resist saying something about what you just said. Your role is to play the challenger. And with an HR background, that's perfect because the heart of HR is nurturance.
Mm.
And love has two dimensions: nurturance and challenge. Nurturance without challenge breeds narcissism and entitlement. Challenge without nurturance breeds shame. And so, with your HR background, your role as a challenger is infused with the energy of nurturance while you're challenging, and that's an unusual skill in my experience. So, and then you also basically the way I'd soundbite what you were just the last thing you said was equip, try, and trust.
Yes.
So, uh, what I want all of you to do is to seek Alyssa K. Borden to solve your toughest workforce challenges so that you can make your workplace the ideal version of your workplace a reality. She's the real deal for innovative talent strategies boosting next level success. Visit successbridge.net, successbridge.net to explore her methodologies and contact her. And you can also follow Alyssa Borden's thought leadership on LinkedIn. So again, that's successbridge.net, not .com. So, very quickly, literally in one short, non run on sentence, what's the big takeaway you want the audience to take from this episode?
Work doesn't have to be this way. It can be better, and we can do it together.
Beautifully, beautifully said. And mine is AI is finally fixing HR's big challenge, how to shed being the compliance police so HR can truly fulfill its intended role of nurturing and developing and challenging personnel teams and company cultures. Again, make sure you like that.
Yeah, that was good.
So again, make sure you visit successbridge.net and follow Alyssa on LinkedIn. Thank you so very much, Alyssa, for bringing your wisdom about how HR can finally fulfill its vast potential and how you can help as an external expert help these companies really step into fulfilling their vast potential. And thank you for being here on my show.
Thank you so much. This has been so fun, and like you said, we could talk on some of these tangents for hours. So I
And maybe
appreciate
I'll
it.
have you back for us to talk about some of those tangents.
That'd be great. Well, thank you so much.
Sure. And thank all of you for joining me for this episode of Reimagining Humanity's Future and Yours on the X Zone Broadcast Network. This has been Dr. David Gruder, the polymath of human potential, societal psychotherapist, and futurist who equips leading edge leaders, influencers, and you with impactful resilience that makes it possible for humanity's most spiritually elevated future to at last emerge. I invite you to explore my main website, drgruder.com. That's drgruder.com, where you'll find a link to watch or listen to all of this show's episodes, as well as a link to the Center for Enlightened Self-Sovereignty, which is helping to dissolve divisiveness by reuniting individuals, businesses, nations, and humanity so we can at last usher in the age of what I call spiritual self-sovereignty that serves us all. The world needs you. Your nation needs you. Your business needs you. Your loved ones need you. You need you. Boost your impact in helping the future you most want to emerge. I enthusiastically invite you to tune in next time for another spellbusting, uplifting, and actionable episode on how together we can and will build a better future for ourselves and for humanity.